Hey, it's Coach Justin from Ultimate Baseball Training. And look, as a baseball player, as a hitter, is there anything worse than going through a slump? For whatever reason, you just can't figure it out at the plate. You can't figure out, is it a timing issue? Is it, a vision issue? You're not truly seeing the ball. Is it something that you have to correct in your swing? And you just feel completely lost and not yourself at the plate, right? And it feels like you couldn't buy yourself a base hit. And, slumps are one of the worst things to experience as a baseball player. They happen to every single player out there, but nonetheless, obviously when you're in the slump, you want to shorten that slump and you want to break out of it as quickly as you possibly can. And so in today's video, I wanted to talk about what's causing your slump. Why are you slumping in the first place? And then I want to provide you with some, hopefully it's helpful advice on how to shorten the amount of time of that slump and really bust out of that slump and get back to your normal self as a hitter. So first of all, let's talk about why are you slumping? What's causing your slump? And the answer is pretty simple, because hitting is one of the hardest things to do, if not the hardest thing to do in all of sports. And I get it, other sports have their own unique set of challenges. Every sport out there is, challenging for different reasons, but hitting a baseball has got to be up there near the top of the list for one of the hardest things to do in all of sports, because what you're effectively trying to do is you're trying to square up a round object, the baseball, right, with another round object, the bat. And oh yeah, by the way, the baseball is not just stationary on a tee in a real game, right? It's actually moving. And so hitting is a hard thing to do. It's hard to produce consistent results with something that's that difficult. And to top it off, baseball is such a game filled with inconsistencies. And what I mean by that is, take hitting for example, right? Well, you're facing a pitcher, and you've got right-handed pitchers and you've got left-handed pitchers, right? You've got pitchers who throw from a wide variety of different arm slots. You've got guys that throw different pitches, right? You've got guys that throw different velocities. Some throw hard and harder than usual, I should say, and some throw softer than usual, and both of those present their own unique set of challenges. And then you've got, obviously, not every single pitch is just a straight fastball. You've got pitches that, curve and slide and dip and dive and move all over the place. And so hitting is a tough thing to do. There's so many inconsistencies with it. And really, there's so many things that you have to do right in order to even make contact. You've got to be able to recognize what pitch is coming out of the hand. You've got to decide whether or not to swing. Your timing has to be good. You've got to have decent bat path to even make contact with the pitch. And so hitting is tough. And to prove it, an interesting stat that I looked up. So in order to be successful as a hitter, right, we all know that you succeed roughly 3 times out of 10 and you're an all-star, a 30% success rate and you're an all-star. That means you fail 70% of the time. But flip the script over to football and you look at a wide receiver. And football is a challenging sport. I love football. And again, it presents its own unique set of challenges. But just to show you how hard hitting is, football elite receivers have like an 80 to 85% or better success rate. So that means that in order to be elite as a receiver, you need to have success 8 or 9 times out of 10. Baseball, you don't see any hitters out there that are having success 8 or 9 times out of 10. It just doesn't happen, right? The elite, the best of the best, only get 3 or 4 hits out of 10 at bats. And so that just goes to show you, receivers are, they have to be up here in order to be elite, and baseball players, the elite of the elite, they only succeed 3 or 4 times out of 10. And so that shows you how challenging it is over here to be successful. I thought that was an interesting stat. I was always curious, what the elite receivers, what is their catch percentage, and it's typically 80 to 85% or better, okay? But that's the reason why you're slumping, is because baseball and hitting is one of the most challenging things that you could ever do. Now let's talk about a couple pointers on how do you actually bust out of this slump. So the first thing is, redefine what success means to you as a hitter. And I'm going to kind of backtrack just a little bit here, because I just talked about how, supposedly on the surface, the best hitters in the world only have success maybe 3 or 4 times out of 10. The rest of the time they fail. But that's really not true. That's the way it looks in the book, right? Because they're looking at batting average, they're looking at base hits. But I encourage you to shift your focus from base hits to simply asking yourself the question after every single at bat, did you beat the pitcher? That should be your measuring stick on whether or not you had a successful at bat or not. Now, Getting a walk, right? The pitcher, obviously, his goal is to not walk hitters. He doesn't want to walk hitters because then you're on base, you have a chance to get in scoring position, and you have a chance to score runs and help your team win. So if you got on base because of a walk, that doesn't mean you failed by any means. That was a successful at bat. That's success. You had plate discipline, and that is success. And so that should, in your mind, tell you, hey, that was a good at bat. And, another thing is hard contact. Even if you hit the ball really, really hard and it's right at a fielder and he makes a great play, or even if he doesn't make a great play, if it's just a hard screaming line drive right at the center fielder, but you swung at a good pitch, you had a good plan at the plate, you barreled it up, you shouldn't complain about that. And on the surface, it looks like a failure, but it's really not a failure. So redefine, if you want to get out of your slump, quit worrying so much about hits because that's not a goal that you can control. Worry about, bring it back in, worry about the things you can control, and just ask yourself at the end of each at bat, when you're thinking about if it was successful or not, did you beat the pitcher? That should be the question that goes through your mind. And to go right along with that, the next tip for getting out of a slump is be consistent with the things you can control. Because as we talked about earlier in the video, there's so many things as a baseball player that you don't have control over, right? There's right-handed pitchers and left-handed pitchers, and they're all throwing different pitches from different arm slots. And you can't control whether it's a day game or a night game, whether it's a home game or an away game. You can't control what, condition the field is. You can't control the weather, whether or not there's bugs, right? You can't control so many things in the game of baseball. And so I think it's so important to control the things that you can control, especially when you're slumping. You want to control as many things that you can keep consistent as possible. So what are some of those things that you can control? How about your pregame meal? You can control that, right? And if you have a consistent pregame meal, that's probably going to be better for you than if you are always eating something differently and your body always is reacting in a little bit of a different way. Wouldn't you agree? That's a great way to get out of a slump. Control those types of things that you can control. So your pregame meal. How about what time you arrive at the ballpark? You might not be able to arrive at the same time of day every single day because you might have day games and night games and all that kind of stuff. But if your coach tells you a certain time, can't you consistently arrive 30 minutes before that or an hour before that, whatever? How about your routine in the on-deck circle? Your pregame routine, your routine in the on-deck circle, your routine when you walk up to the plate, your routine in between pitches, your routine in the dugout after you just failed at the plate, right? After you struck out or hit a ground ball and ground it out. When you come back to the dugout, can't you control what you do, what you think about in terms of evaluating your at-bat and then making adjustments moving forward? Can't you control that? So I'm a big believer in a game filled with inconsistencies and things you cannot control. Try your best. The things you can control, control it. Another thing is, don't cheat the baseball gods. And what I mean by don't cheat the baseball gods is, look, the world rewards those who work hard, right? And so especially when you're in a slump, I think the worst thing that you can do is show up to practice on time and leave on time. That's basically the bare minimum of what's required of you as a baseball player, right? And especially when you're struggling, if you continue to do the exact same thing, you're going to expect, or you should expect, to continue to get the exact same results. If you're slumping, you want different results, right? So change something. Do something a little bit different. That means, it might be you just need to put in a little bit more work. And so I'm telling you, I think karma is a real thing with the baseball gods and just in life, right? And so whenever you're struggling, you should do this all the time. You should really get into the habit of showing up early and staying a little bit later, because if you say that you want to be an above average baseball player, then obviously you have to do more work than what the average baseball player does, right? So you should be doing this all the time, but really provide that extra effort, especially when you're going through a slump. You're trying to get out of that slump. Don't shirk the work. Don't cheat the baseball gods. And I got 2 more tips for you on how to break out of your slump. They're both very important. One of them is simplify, okay? Keep it simple. It's very normal as a baseball player, especially when you're struggling, it's normal to start making things more complex and more difficult than they actually are. Because, you never think that the simple answer is the correct answer, especially when you're struggling. You're always thinking about, well, I have to do more and I have to change this and that with my stance and my swing and my mechanics and all that kind of stuff. And so really that just adds fuel to the fire, because we start thinking about too much, we start getting brain heavy, and that's a recipe for disaster, not a recipe for success. And so whenever you're, struggling and you're in a slump, yes, in practice, work on trying to get to what is causing that slump. If it's something in your swing, which a lot of times it's not, but if it's something in your swing, practice is a great time to work on that. But in a game, simplify. Baseball is a simple game. It's not easy by any means, but it's simple. So think about keeping it simple, right? See the ball and hit the ball. That should be, you should have some simple thoughts going through your mind. It doesn't have to be that, but it can be that. It can be yes, yes, no. It can be see it and hit it. It can be, see it, see the ball. Whatever helps you have a simple, clear mindset, that's going to be the thing that helps you break out of the slump quickest. So whenever going through a tough time, get back to the basics. Really just simplify things down to their very basic form. And then the last tip for getting out of your slump is play the game one pitch at a time. And again, this is one of those things where you should always be doing this, not necessarily just when you're slumping, but when you're slumping, it becomes so easy to start thinking about the past or the future, right? You start thinking about, oh man, I'm 0 for 2 today, not again. I was 0 for 6 this past weekend, and now I'm already 0 for 2, so now I'm 0 for 8. And you start thinking about the past. What are you doing when you're thinking about the past? You're not playing in the present. Or you can, do the reverse, and you can start thinking, well, man, I've been struggling. I've been 0 for 8 recently. So now in order to get my batting average up to here, I've got to get this many hits this weekend. Or that's thinking about the future. And the past is over and the future hasn't happened yet. So worry about the present moment. Don't even worry about all the at-bats that you have today. Don't worry about 4 at-bats, because you can't dominate 4 at-bats at once. You can't get 4 hits at once. All you can do is get 1 hit. And in order to get 1 hit, what do you have to do? You have to put a good swing on what? 1 pitch. So just think about winning each pitch. Win this pitch, boom. All right, you won that pitch, then move on to the next pitch. But always be playing the game 1 pitch at a time, and that's going to really help you get out of your slump. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit that like button for me. I'd really appreciate it. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. Join the UBT family. We're coming out with new videos all the time for you. So thank you so much for watching today's video. Hope it was helpful, and I'll see you next time.